These days, new photography gear and technology is being introduced at an absolutely insane rate. New gear reviews have practically taken over my channel in the last couple of months. And I love new gear, though I am definitely eager to add some more technique videos to my feed in the coming months. It's always a struggle to find a balance with my time and what to work on, but while I do love new gear and I am fascinated in the advances in technology that are happening, I think it's important to remember that you don't always need the newest or the most expensive gear to achieve your photography goals. In fact, Raymond is working on a crazy multi-lens adapter project to put old and sometimes even ancient lenses on new gear and still have them autofocus, including autofocusing Nikon manual focus and older AF lenses on Nikon Z bodies. They said it's impossible, but it's not. Anyway, subscribe to see that video when it comes out in a few weeks. So I answer a lot of your questions about new gear and the idea of any new piece of gear being worth the upgrade. So I answer all these questions. I've been inundated with new gear to review in the last few months. And here's what happened. I was cleaning up my office and I found a stack of photography books that I had put together from various trips that I've taken. So to avoid cleaning, because I hate cleaning, I sat down on the floor in here and I looked through some of the books, which was super fun. And it got me to thinking about other trips over the years. And I thought about all of the gear that I used for all of these hundreds and really thousands of photos. Some people think about the food that they ate while on a trip. I reminisce about the camera that was hanging around my neck. Some of the gear was new, or at least new at the time. Some of the gear was already years old. Some of it was higher end, some more entry level, but it doesn't really matter what camera I was using. I like the photos, and I don't think that they would necessarily have been made better with newer or more expensive gear. So today I wanted to take one genre of photography that was in those books, wildlife photography, and I want to share some of my own old photos along with the gear that I used as a reminder to you and to me that you can use all sorts of different gear, new or old. It's often far more about the technique, the timing, the light and location than the gear. I mean, it's not like just because I used a 10 or 15-year-old lens, the photo isn't good anymore, right? I should be able to take any of the gear that I used to use, take it out today, and capture photos just as good. I don't have all of that gear anymore, but I do have the photos. So today I want to share some of my own wildlife photography and the gear that I used to capture them. Now I chose wildlife to discuss today because it is an area where gear does make a difference. I mean, it's tough to get a close-up shot of a bird in flight with a 24mm lens. But if you are looking into an expensive piece of gear like a super telephoto lens, you will have options. You don't necessarily need the newest and fastest camera body and the latest and greatest wide aperture super telephoto prime lens. You might consider something less top of the line, or you might consider used gear. Many camera and lens brands sell refurbished equipment, or you can go through a trusted seller. This video is sponsored in part by one of those sellers of used gear that I trust, KEH. KEH buys and sells used gear. You can get a quote online or schedule a virtual appointment with an expert buyer. I've done both. I was selling my own gear to KEH before they ever approached me about being a sponsor of the channel, and they are one of the few companies that I would trust to purchase used gear from because they know how to thoroughly inspect and test gear before anything substandard would ever get into your hands. This could be handy for you if you want to, say, find a great telephoto lens for wildlife photography. You can sell stuff that you don't use anymore to get cash for new stuff, or get a KEH credit and find something previously loved on their site. I am also a KEH affiliate, which means that if you use my links to buy from or sell to KEH, I get a modest commission and you get a discount if you're purchasing and a bonus if you're selling. It's a win for you and me if you use that link. So check the description for those links to KEH. Okay, back to the video. First, the idea of budget is a spectrum. You can spend tens of thousands of dollars on new, very nice prime telephoto lenses and very fast cameras, and they're wonderful. But you can use your entry-level camera body and telephoto kit lens as well, or even a point-and-shoot camera. And then there's a whole lot of stuff in between. Like I said, I have owned and or used quite a range of equipment, so you'll see photos with a range of gear. Let's begin with this series. Any idea what gear I used? I used my Nikon D500 and the Nikon 200 to 500 millimeter f5.6 lens. Now this camera and lens aren't very old. They were each released within the last 5 years, but neither were top of the line equipment. They're both mid-range, and they've been on the market long enough that you can get either of them used and enjoy the same capability as when they were new at a discount. Here's another with the Nikon D500, but this time with a Nikon 70 to 200 f2.8 lens. The D500 was relatively new at the time I captured this, but the lens was absolutely not. The version I was using was discontinued in 2009. It was many years old, though there were newer versions available at the time. In fact, Raymond and I had discussed purchasing a newer version of this lens, but we decided against it because this one just worked. Mixing things up a bit, take a look at this video. It was captured with a point-and-shoot camera. It is a higher-end point-and-shoot with a 1-inch sensor, a Sony RX100 Mark VII, but a point-and-shoot nonetheless. And I was holding the camera. I wouldn't have been able to get handheld video of this guy or gal with the larger telephoto setups that I've used. Speaking of coyotes, this young man was captured with a Fujifilm X-H1 and Fuji's 100 to 400 millimeter f4.5 to 5.6 lens. These were not new items when I used them, and Fujifilm in general is quite budget friendly anyway. What's funny is that I am borrowing that lens again with one of Fuji's newer bodies right now. Now this is a fun one. This was a bit of a Frankenstein setup. It was a Nikon 1V1 in Nikon's short-lived 1-inch sensor interchangeable lens 1 series, but we put an F-mount adapter on the body and used a Nikon APS-C kit lens, a 55 to 200 millimeter f4 to 5.6. And it wasn't even the most updated version of that lens at the time. Today, this gear would be considered obsolete, and both are available for bargain bin pricing, yet the results hold up very well against much newer equipment. This is a 2-for-1. These two Ospreys were captured on different days, but with the same camera, the Nikon P1000. That is a super zoom point-and-shoot camera. It has a tiny sensor, but it has an extreme zoom on it. You can go all the way to an effective field of view of 3,000 millimeters. Fun fact, my review of the Nikon P1000 is one of the most all-time popular videos on my channel, and it's a point-and-shoot. And I threw this one in here just for fun. Bees count as wildlife, right? This was the Nikon D300S and the incredibly robust 17 to 55 millimeter f2.8 DX lens. I had to get pretty close to this bee to get the shot, but I made it work. I had just purchased that camera body when I started this channel over 11 years ago, and we had already had that lens for many years before that. I could go on. I have used all sorts of gear in my years of loving photography, both on and off YouTube. The one thing that rings true, no matter what cameras and lenses that you have in your pack, I said it earlier, especially with something like wildlife, gear will only get you so far. It's really your own technique and know-how with your gear and your timing, light, and location that will win the day. I know I need to get my behind out to the desert just before sunrise to find the coyotes hunting, or if I see an osprey in a nest on my way home from a trail run, I need to scurry home, grab my gear, and go back to that nest no matter how tired I am. You have to set yourself up for success and take those lucky opportunities when they present themselves. I would love for this to be a discussion in the comments section. What do you use for wildlife photography? I know there are many of you out there that are using the top of the line gear, and sometimes I do too, but I also know that there are others of you using kit lenses or a telephoto lens that you've continued to use for years simply because it works for you. Why do you use what you use? You know about me. I own a few telephoto and super telephoto lenses, but I also will shoot whatever I happen to have with me. whatever that may be. And I don't think twice about it. Thank you to KEH for sponsoring a portion of this video. Remember that I have a couple of links for you in the description. One link and code for you to get a free quote on selling your gear, along with a bonus on top of that quote. And then another link and code to get a discount on purchasing gear. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.